Oop, knocking everything over. Just set up, and then I knock everything with my fist. Alright, anyways, hello, this is Joe the Masks again, otherwise known as Joseph Hitchcock. Basically, I'm here again doing another Love Can Bloom reading. I really liked the first one. I think a lot of you did too. If you didn't, well, tell me in the comments what you would rather see me do. Down there, in those comments down there. These ones. And I'm feeling your comments right now. Anyways, I moved the camera the camera's still over there. I moved the microphone closer because I had a few people tell me that it was a little bit quiet. I've also played with the settings a little bit on the Phantom booster, but we'll see how this goes. Again, tell me what you like and don't like about it. Anyways, if you remember from the last part of our story, so if you haven't watched the first video, go back and watch it now because I'm doing a little bit of spoilers on it. Basically, the assassin had chosen not to kill Taldir and ended up going into battle with each other, or with Taldir and LCIV something, ended up going into battle and against Necrons with each other instead of him killing her like was supposed to. Now Alexander has the Inquisition breathing down his neck because one of their assassins that was kind of, on his trigger, his loaded gun assassin is now no longer basically with the Imperium at this moment that they know of. He's gone rogue, and that's very unheard of for assassins. Very unheard of for assassins in 40k. So anyways, that's basically what's happened so far. So we're going to pick up with Chapter 3, and then let's see if I can get through at least 3, 4, maybe 5 and 6, see how long these chapters are. Anyways, thank you very much for watching. I'm Joe of the Masks, and here's Chapter 3 of Love Can Bloom. Slaanesh was near. Taldir could feel it in every breath. Blood. A lot of blood was lost. She shouldn't be dead yet, though. A noise. A presence. It wasn't a Necron. It shouldn't be like this. She was trusted to come, to guide the Lessers, to extinguish the threat throbbing rotten in the core of Kronos, and leave them in confusion. Yet here she was, helpless, losing blood, fallen fool to pride, at the mercy of something, someone with a presence at least. She took a small comfort in that, and the soul gem still at her neck. Primary suffering, internal bleeding, blood loss severe. The thoughts came through again. Her eyelids flickered, momentary glances of a too bright gray sky. What did they come unbidden? Pain. Pain, currently showing resignation. Job unclean. Primary has high chance of survival. Good mission. How? How to clean primary. The thoughts were jumbled, mashed, rigid iron rods set that his thoughts ran through, but there was something active in there. She felt a hand touch her. She opened her eyes and pushed out, pure reaction. A moment, and she was sitting up, regretting it immediately as fire lanced up and down her. The thoughts came again. Primary is active. Medical science far easier than expected. Damage to self superficial. Now. A lengthy pause, then hesitant, uncertain. Converse? You're okay? A voice flat and muffled came behind her. At first a statement, then a question as she tottered again. This time, she was caught. Commissar Daniel glared out to the top of the Chimera. "This is ridiculous!" he shouted, turning to the poor sergeant down inside the Chimera, who was genuinely standing and listening to the bellicose man. "How so, sire?" "The soldiers of his holy wrath should not be prancing about in the middle of nowhere, chasing some worthless incapable who got himself lost. We should descend upon the orcs, take advantage of our victory." "Do you doubt, Lord Lucas?" the surgeon casually said, looking away. "If I didn't have all my faith behind noble Lord Lucas Alexander, I wouldn't be doing this," Commissar Daniel finished with a glare. The sergeant nodded amiably, a large happy grin on his face. "Local yokel," thought the commissar as he stepped back inside the Chimera. "Probably never even heard of Cadia, much less appreciate what the glorious Imperium was doing, gifting this pathetic dirtball with the grace of his mercy to liberate it." He glanced at the auspex. 5 clicks left. He leaned back, pushing forward his cap. Commander of 30 guardsmen, each armed with the best weapons that they were ranked for, with the authority to kill any one of them or any one in their way to recover one missing soldier. And all he wanted was a drink. No, go. Get off! She pulled against whatever was holding her. Had to get up, get away from the Monkai. But she was oh so very tired. She stilled, still looking down, tensed, waiting. The seas of fortune were still. She had to reflect that stillness. Primary, I'm sorry, you're not primary, you're... The voice was muffled. She stared up. Faceless, matte black stealth suit, a pistol in the holster, comm mic dangling by a wire, compact, hard frame, well formed for a human. In a purely military sense, of course, she had to estimate that it was best to just lay back. She was hardly in any shape to resist him, and he wasn't hostile, yet. Stay neutral, clipped, communicate in their Gothic language, but make clear no witless. Farseer Taldir, your name? Liivi. He had a mind of iron, well trained to keep her out. It was also hard to translate human thought, but she prided herself on her mastery of psionics. Yet, frustratingly, she was on near equal footing with a mere soldier with a gun. All she felt were some whispers of emotion, autonomous instinct, identification. Do you always spell things out, Livy? Livy. Strange name. I think this is my first time. She noted with surprise her captor was rusty in his own language. Why were you shooting the Necrons? Secondary objective, destroy hostile combatants. And the first? Livy paused, looked away. A whisper of a thought passed through her head as she stared intently at him. The iron bars of his mind shifted subtly until they struck. To protect you. Of all the history of the Vindicator's career, if you please. Lucas blinked, glancing at the now fully conscious and hurting Adrian. History? You're the handlers. Midliff sighed, leaning back in his chair, opening hands for the guards behind him to place a data slate and quill into it. We do take care of him, keeping him in an isolation shell and maintaining his health, yes, but if you recall, your landing at Victory Bay and the following conquests were chaotic. He was out of our hands and served in the field. But, Hadrian said, he would leave between missions, just disappear. We assumed he was going back to you. Mission probability post-combat rejuvenation isolation, reset and re-maintain for next Operation Greater Campaign. Lucas glanced over at one of the four fake guardsmen. What? Don't blame him. He doesn't know how to speak. Blending with civilian populaces is our strong suit. Best avoid only after one's proven his worth. That is our temple's dogma. We are proven success by this. What he meant was that your assassin was probably removing himself from the soldiers as taught, and to attain a good position with field of fire, and if possible, meditate. Insert a food pack to his veins, clean and repair his weapon, and sleep half-hour cycles. Not that it matters. I want to know every single thing you ordered him to do in the bare 3 months he has been out of our eyes. Support of soldiers and taking the industries of Victory Bay. Adrian wrinkled his nose. Nasty fighting. We got tripped up with a Toffelsism. Tau sympathizers were fighting each other. And I ordered him to cover fire. Occupants were in the house. I ordered him to clear it. There was a family. Wouldn't affect him. He understands families to be the smallest and most informal squads. Nothing more. He wouldn't care. Protect me? Taldir realized she had to remain casual. There was a lie in his voice. Even it wasn't in his mind. Some Monkey thug hired by one of their damned inquisitors who wanted to be enlightened or to steal technology. Just what she needed. Why me? She was too injured to argue right now. It is a duty. He doesn't know, she realized, and he's very confused about it. Typical idiocy. These humans hadn't even explained the purpose to their henchmen. Guess that's what you get when you're so many with so short to live. Perhaps, Farseer Taldir said, you may do something about my injuries, and cease holding on to me. The most important thing at the moment was ensuring immobility. Her men would come soon. She could be evacuated easily. And this one human world would. She would think on it. How? She was not expecting that. How? Well, shouldn't you know that? I've felt it flash through soldiers' minds. when I hack them to screaming pieces with my weapons. Let's not mention that bit. When they, are dying, I was taught that was a common response, the call for a medic. It replaces or supplants call of maternal member of the family squad, or paternal, more rarely. Nurture, healing are associated with it. I am taught that if the shot is unclean, and the target is out of sight, all those who bear the common sign of a healer are to be shot. Taldir stared, and Livy stared down back at her, then as if to explain, to disable any chance of the primary resuscitating and rendering the mission a failure. Silence. Perhaps it's best if you set me down, and keep watch for enemies while I treat myself. The surf doesn't chop, the tide ebbs, insignificant, rising and falling like the ocean was sleeping. Vasya Taldir sits on the beach of tomorrow, and in the Teru plains of Cronus. 3 kilometers away, through the rough terrain, Wraithbone psychoplastic bubbled as the last of the consecrated promethium burned off the Bone Singer's arts. The webway was long destroyed, reduced to shards as she had evacuated through it. A mere kilometer under her, the presumed home of the Necrons had turned quiet, for now at least. As she recalled, the nearest possible position of her battle group was at least 15 kilometers away. And 9 meters away was the human, Monkai, killer, assassin, weapon, savior. He had knelt down, rolling out a plastic canopy which he laid his rifle down upon, and was cleaning it one-handed. The other carried a pistol, straightening and pointing at the rustles of wind, and the far-off thunder of ordnance. The face mask remained intently focused on the rifle the whole time. Vasya Taldir took to her runestones, and after a moment's contemplation, her shuriken pistol. She grabbed a handful of her dice, raising them to her spirit stone. She was injured, cut off from a sport, alone with a self-declared assassin. Time to roll the bones. 9 rounds used, 18 remaining. Hellfire, Turbo Penetrator, and Shield Breaker Ordnance still in reserve. Movement at 321 degrees. The arm holding the Exitus pistol snapped over by reflex. The third eye sight unable to clearly catch up. Primary was rolling dice. All of her equipment was beside her. She appeared to be dropping some sort of smaller equipment. The N20 coolant sheath emits The N20 coolant sheet emits a small hiss as it slides over the barrel. The Vindicare returns his pistol to the holster, replacing the magazines, packing together and reassembling his rifle. They would be tracking him now. The small electronic whine on his person told him as much. The terrain was rougher. The commander had chosen the battlefield to hem in the Eldar, forced their hover vehicles to slow and show themselves above cover. Made for a difficult time sending forces out of the base, though. The Vindicare stood up, flicking through the spectra as he glances over a horizon, purple, green, pigment-streaked, ruined soup of black and white, a concrete heat signature, atypical of a chimera half a kilometer away. Vindicare doctrine taught that engagement with pursuers should never be undertaken when the tables knew where you were. Misdirection, panic, and dissolution were the 3 objectives when handling hostile trackers. The Vindicare placed a fresh 3-round clip into his magazine, and stepped low among the long grasses, following the yellow-white smear of thermal exhaust in the sky. Lucas took another gulp from the water, sweating from every pore, as the 3 official Assassinorum handlers stood before his table, their poreless faces still. Adrian was to his left, pale and shivering, still suffering from the chemicals washed through him. So it's very nice that you explained to me exactly how much you think I screwed up in handling the defective wind-up kill toy, who apparently was so perfect that he fucked up a job before he came here. But you haven't explained to me how I avoid having to worry about receiving a bullet between the eyes whenever I go outside from one of the Imperium's finest fallen. Napalm the area. A good 3 kilometers radius should serve to deprive him of oxygen. Deploy the Aeronautica and carpet bomb the area. Break the Obsterum dams up north and deploy a third of your manpower assaulting, poisoning, and watching the plains flood that'll occur. Hyperbole is very charming and useful in military situations, and not in the least wanted. And sarcasm is a pleasant and original way to respond to statements you do not like. All I have told you are guaranteed ways to eliminate your problem. Mildliv waved his hand. Of course, we could wait for him to run out of ammo for his Exitus rifle, which would allow you to run normal operations without worrying about officer heads popping, and then for him to run out of food. That would actually work. Of course, he's incapable of social contact and dependent upon the nutrition packs he's been indoctrinated to consume. He might well starve, bearing any civilian assistance. 3 weeks from now, you won't have to worry about him, if the orcs or space marines don't get him first. Adrian for the first time spoke nervously. And the Farseer? What if she intervenes? Midliv raised an eyebrow. Then he'll die sooner, with an injured parasite clinging to him. The Chimera of the Imperial Guard is about as simple and reliable as a vehicle can get without it being pedal-powered. Long-lived chimeras in active use soon resemble their namesake, seeming mechanical abominations with piece after piece wielded to them. The hatches replaced by doors stolen from civilian buildings, hastily covered in metal roof sheeting, shorn-off track pieces replaced with cruddy filtered boiler plates, discarded power pack casings molded into hinges. The machines would run unwell, sending the tech priests and engine seers into hysterical fits, begging forgiveness from the machine spirits, and repairing and replacing what they could identify and find at the parts depot. But the older chimeras would get a slow, mottled look over them, like a child mixing clays in a creek. It was impossible to separate metals and alloys at a basic level without rebuilding the whole thing. They wouldn't run well, but they would most certainly run. A chimera, as taught in Vindicare doctrine, was a terrible headache to deal with. Tanks were less of a worry, as those deploying tanks against assassins were considered tactically inept, and the Vindicare gained some honor in tying up valuable resources. Height, urban combat, and tactical use of screens could put the tanks on even footing. A chimera, on the other hand, could always be used. A sniper holding a building, the chimera would bash into the ground floor, disgorging soldiers. If the building collapsed, so what? There was always another chimera. No illumination, headlights shot out, smoke screen, everything. Just drive. You'll find your way out eventually. As much as anything else, the turbo penetrator round was developed to counter these situations. 2 chimera crawled through the bush and over the hills and rocks as the kilogram-heavy green-banded bullet was placed to the chamber. Commissar Daniel poked his head out of the hatch again. The tech guy had said the Auspics picked up something coming closer. It should be in sight range. 1 MIA and all this trouble. He hoped that this was really one huge birth date surprise for one of the soldiers, so that he could then shoot whoever was responsible. Got a direction? Should be cardinal east. Left or right, soldier, or pass me a compass. Just a little to your left, sir. The commissar turned, squinting through the haze of heat at the long grass and lumpy excuse for terrain. A glint of something, then a crack, a flash of light somewhere to his right, and something gave a soft tink in the chimera's lower armor. "Enemy fire!" shouted the commissar, pulling down the hatch. As the surprised soldiers sat up, the political officer shouting them, "Move, move, move! A man on every gun, and any gun that can shoot to the right, shoots! I want a wasteland I can name after myself. Do you comprehend, soldiers?" They followed his orders as best as they could, barring that could only be done by consulting with the planet's geographer. A hailstorm of red stabs of coherent light obliterated the area and the rigid flint and rock that provided the target. Misdirection. Levy holstered his pistol, creeping low through the grass, trying to get himself into a more advantageous position. "Cease fire," said the commissar, his day much improved. The soldiers relaxed, standing at ease, hands still holding the sign-mounted lasguns, venting excess steam outwards. "Driver, bark us as near as you can to that suicidal stain, and give cover to the second chimera. Chimera 2, tell your squad to deploy and move in. Investigate the area. If there's a corpse, ID it. If there isn't, bring me a corpse. Copy?" Affirmative. It was a risk, yes. Taking a squad of soldiers out of a perfectly safe armored personnel carrier begged for snipers, traps, and a whole lot of corpses. But that would betray targets. Feeling a bit like Ibram Gaunt, the commissar leaned into the driver. Stick as close to them as possible. If they bug out, move out as quickly as possible. Then get a bead on who fired on us. Clear? "Sir," muttered the driver, pulling alongside the nervous squad extracting themselves from the second chimera. The troops, true to form, stayed close to the Chimera, practically hugging the tread guard, sweeping in close, led by their las rifles, eyes peeled for mines, traps. The second Chimera pulled up alongside the first. The guardsmen squeezed in between. The Vindicare watched them, 500 meters behind. The one at the front, 1.6 meters, was the leader, the paternal. A soldier from the back, covered in square las cells, a tear still visible in his sleeve, moved forward, with a little undue haste to exchange words. On one helmet the word "tea time." A man pointed to his boot, hopping forward on one leg, speaking out of the side of his mouth. Laughter. The exodus rifle fired. The commissar was next to the wall of the Chimera when he heard the squeal. He fell immediately, las pistol to the ready, facing the wall. Maybe it was adrenaline, or perhaps it was the initial charge of the fire rifle and the drill bit activity. But somehow Daniel managed to watch a steel line, occasionally sending sparks and slivers of metal out, rise along the wall, ending somewhere just short of the driver's hatch, shooting out lights as it traveled along, shrieking. In the dark, he heard the thumps and screams of the soldiers outside, the panicked revving as the driver slammed down the accelerator, the lurch to the right, equipment falling around them, then another definite slam. Outside, the Vindicare watched through the scope, watching a track fly free, a joint broken by a shot, hanging for one brief moment before the driver hit the gas, sending the tread whipping at the crowd of soldiers. Their Chimera lurched left, lacking pull, slamming into the other, doing mostly cosmetic damage, but severing the Vindicare's purpose. Screams, and a commissar and a crowd of soldiers leapt out, weapons brandished at the ready. Panic. The rifle was slung, and low through the long glass. The assassin moved forward, pistol out. The most immediate problem was restoring the squad's rationality, and calming them down before they panicked entirely. A quick glance proved that the commissar had initially thought. Gouges in the side of the Chimera, several severe damage to the soldiers, and a track torn off on his Chimera. The first thing to do in any case is to be the first man to set the example. Spread out! Fire to the first thing that moves! Was admittedly a bad choice, but something had torn a large gash through his Chimera and incapacitated the squad. What was he supposed to do? Break out the rations? You men left, the rest of you right. Drivers, up to the multi-lasers. Fan anything coming with fire. Keep looking. It could be a Carnifex for all we know. Another bad choice of words. Buzzing, clicking insects hopping across. Rustles of 18 soldiers, rattling, going through the fields. Rifles first. A commissar, standing between two chimeras, wedged together, covered by two multi-lasers. One of the guardmen falls with a sudden gasp. A power sword points, and orders given. A confused man, who had the wind knocked out of him by a thrown rock, suddenly finds himself surrounded by red, searing flashes. The commissar, raising his last pistol, catches a glimpse of something sandy, black, darting ahead of him. A pair of useless shots whiz into the undergrowth. Something whizzes by the commissar's face. This is it, Daniel thought. Death or glory. The power sword crackles with a death-dealing life. As the commissar ran forward, the blade held aloft. He had to say something inspiring, he realized. Face your doom, foul Xenos! He hopes one of the troops hear it. He runs in the grass, waving his blade around. A lack of mandibles and claws key him off to something's wrong. The grass catching fire is the second dissolution. The guardsmen run. What were they supposed to do? They were spread apart. Something had torn apart the chimeras. The leader had shouted something and disappeared. And now the grass was catching fire? What could they do? The drivers only had the sense of mind to abandon the crippled chimera before they drove off, past the soldiers, relaying the panic and breaking of the unit to the base, heralding their failure and embellishing the story to seem as if they encountered an entire orc wog in the long grass. In their haste, they forgot the wounded. Private Ganesh lay on his back, staring at the patch of grey sky, rounded by black smoke. He was one of those wounded left behind. Perhaps, he considered, the only one. Your helmet. Ganesh rolled his head over to a figure, hazy and blurred against the dark smoke, red flickering across its brow, fire licking away from its feet, ash swirling round it. What does it mean? Ganesh was paralyzed from the waist down, and had bone jutting out of his leg like a wheat of a farm. Who was he to argue importance with an angel of death? Tea time? A nod. The smoke crawls off as the shadow steps forward. Tea time was a sarcastic, a joke. Far times. On Cadia. I work in a house as a guard for a while. A guy I worked for always had a special time for Brazarian tea. The Reaper cocked his head at this. Ganaris waited a moment, then launched on, feeling vaguely blasphemous, whispering through the pain. Never took briefings then, just him and his cup. Serene, even during a war, so long as he got that hot-flavored water of his. So me and my mate, we said, all's well as long as it's tea time. We put tea time on our helmets, a joke. That way we'd stay cool. Serene as a fat man in his cup. Guess blood loss and brain damage was doing more for me, huh? The Angel of Death did not laugh at the joke. Ganaeus couldn't blame him. Wouldn't seem proper, laughing at a dying man. Flakes of ash fell around the two, smoke drifting over them. The Vindicator considered this for a moment. He shrugged, then bent down and took hold of a las rifle, then reached over to pull 2 pockets from Ganaeus' pockets. Ganaeus, for his part, did not resist. The assassin rose, half-turned, then paused. Do you require the Emperor's benediction? No, please. Ganaeus looked up. The gray sky turned blue, even as the window narrowed as the smoke thickened. Not yet. I don't want to die yet. Very well. Again, the Vindicator turned, heading for the smoke. Wait, the cripple shrugged, turning, crawling after the shadow headed into the dock. Hold on, I have to ask you. His eyelids were like lead weights, dragging down, but one burning mote was left in his head. Hold on, please hold on. It's all dark now. Please! Pain flared anew, even as the world was dark, Ganaeus' hand digging into embers. Tell me, will it hurt? Please, tell me. No. The angel didn't lie. The body was still, for a time, until eventually uncertain hands reached over, turning the body to face up, folding the hands over its chest, and shutting the eyelids, imitating the last respects it had seen time and time again through the lens of his scope. Alright, that was chapter 3. Getting a little tired and throat's getting a little dry. Had a little bit of problem with bile earlier this morning. So I think that's going to be it for this time. It's a good 27, half an hour long anyways, so I think this should be fine. So that'll be chapter 4 coming in, either next week or the week after, depending on how posting goes. Anyways, thank you again very much for watching my channel. I'm Joeofthemasks. You can click a like and subscribe if you did like it. Again, tell me any other type of videos that you would like to see me do that I've already done or any such as that. And you guys have a wonderful day. Thanks for listening.